This is the first show of the Sonoran Skillet, a cooking show about local food in Baja Arizona. I'm Megan. I'm the managing editor of this wonderful magazine, Edible Baja Arizona. We cover the foodways of Tucson and the borderlands, and what we're going to do in this show is go out and talk to all of the amazing producers and ranchers and cheesemakers and bread bakers who bring us this great food in this place that we call Baja Arizona, and show you how to make it in your home kitchen. I'm super excited to be teaming up with my good friend Molly.
I began cooking when I was a little girl, running through my parents' garden. I love reading cookbooks, and I'm lucky enough to get to review cookbooks for Edible now. Megan and I are both passionate about simple preparations of foods that you can get locally here in Tucson at farmers markets.
And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to show you how to make homemade pasta using local eggs and local Arizona flour, and we're going to make a great sauce with all these vegetables that we got at the farmers market.
I heard that you got to talk to Chris Bianco, owner of Pizzeria Bianco, about this lovely local Durham wheat and white Sonoran wheat.
Tell us about white Sonora wheat. What's the brief story of white Sonora wheat?
Coming over in the late 1600s, was a staple. You know, looking at the history of white Sonora, and one of the reasons I wanted to try to bring it back into some of the things that we did, use it as a use it where we'd use like you know, for cakes, biscotti, and desserts and crepes. Well, anywhere we can use it, we will. The biggest X factor is it has a sense of stability as a grain, but as soon as we mill it, it's activated. But it is dying, so the quicker we get it, you know, into our bodies, the better. I use local foods because it makes great sense.
And we got these beautiful local eggs from Resonation Farm.
Thanks for having us out, guys. Tell us a little bit about your farm.
Right now, I think we're running about 250 laying hens at the moment. We send right now approximately 50 dozen eggs to the Food Conspiracy Co-op. We started doing this because essentially we wanted better food for ourselves.
Why should we buy local eggs?
I think customers tend to recognize that food grown closer to them, whether it's their neighbor or their farmer, tends to be healthier. So investing in the person who is actually growing some of our most basic needs, those are some reasons why.
Let's start cooking.
So let's start drinking.
Yeah, I got this great bottle of wine from the co-op from Arizona Stronghold. Cheers. So what we're basically gonna do is we're gonna mound our pasta in the middle of the counter, just like Italian grandmothers do. And I understand Chris Bianco told you exactly how much of each flour you should use.
Yeah, we're gonna use this blue Durham wheat because it has more gluten to hold the pasta together, and we're gonna throw in some of this white Sonora wheat just because it has a really great flavor. So we're gonna do about, I think, 3 cups of the Durham wheat and a cup of the white Sonora wheat.
Okay, perfect. I just level it off with a butter knife. You know, my philosophy with cooking is you don't have to be perfect.
So that was 3, yeah. That's mine. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So white Sonoran wheat is an heirloom crop. It started in Sonora in the 1600s with Father Kino, and he brought it north across the border. It's a really great wheat for the desert because it does well in drought and our hot climate, and I really think it tastes like the desert.
Okay, so we just need 1 cup of the white Sonoran wheat. And I'll go ahead and start cracking some eggs. We want to mix the 1 teaspoon of salt in with the flour.
We're gonna end up making a little crater in the middle here to put our eggs in.
And then you slowly incorporate the eggs. It's called a slurry. Anything where you're incorporating solid liquid into the solid ingredients. Okay, that didn't work out. Most people do this in a bowl, and so it's less messy, but this is a much more authentic way of doing it, even if it gets a little bit messy. Since Megan's already got her hands kind of covered in egg, I'm just gonna
we got some more egg over
let
here.
you start folding it in. And then, as we learned, if it's a little too dry, you can sprinkle a little bit of water on. So when you start folding it, I will sprinkle a little bit of water as we need it.
Okay, well, I'm folding. I do think we might need a little water.
Okay.
Look at that big dry patch of flour right there.
You do need 2 people to make pasta. You know, personally, I'm not gonna make pasta, homemade pasta after a long 10-hour day, but it's really nice to do on the weekend when you have some time.
Right.
When it bounces back like that, is that the gluten network being formed?
Exactly, yeah. Gluten is just a protein, and so it's what holds bread together. It's what makes bread springy and cakes moist.
So we're gonna wrap the dough balls in plastic and let them rest in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. This just kind of increases the elasticity for it to go through the pasta machine.
So when you're making homemade pasta, simple is best for the sauce. We're going to use these great fresh vegetables to make our sauce. We're going to roast tomatoes, zucchini, and fennel and combine them all together with some local goat cheese and olive oil.
Starting with the fennel, a lot of people are really confused about fennel, how to use it. You know, it's this big, beautiful plant. And you can use the fronds for garnish, which we will use a little bit for the garnish. But what I like to do is cut the fronds off completely. And then I generally cut off about a third of the plant. I like to save my fennel fronds in a bag in the freezer for stock. So you just want to slice the fennel very thinly. You want to get as much of the fennel as you can because this is going to be our aromatic. You always want onion, garlic, or some kind of aromatic, ginger, fennel, because that's what provides your flavor.
So while Molly's working on the fennel, I'm going to cut up our patty pan squash and zucchini. Patty pan is such a funny name.
It's like patty mayonnaise.
It's like patty cakes, Baker Man.
So now we're going to toss the fennel with some olive oil and salt and pepper. You can roast any vegetable like this, and it just gives them such a nice, deep, roasty flavor.
The oven is ready. We've preheated the oven to 400 degrees, and that's my loud oven telling us it's ready to go.
I just put a nice pinch of salt in there, and then I toss it with my hands. No need to do this in a bowl. You can just do it right on your trusty old sheet pan.
So the squash is going to cook for about 15 minutes because it's a tougher vegetable, and then we're going to add these really delicious fresh tomatoes because they cook very quickly. You know vegetables are done roasting when they're kind of brown around the outside and a little soft.
So our pasta dough is now ready after it's been resting in the fridge for about 30 minutes. We're going to cut it into smaller pieces so we can run it through our pasta machine.
The process of baking pasta is basically just taking our dough, which is pretty thick, and thinning it out so it's like a pasta noodle. And so we do that with our machine by putting it through a few times so it gets long and stretchy, and then after it's long and stretchy, we cut it up into noodles.
We're going to start at the machine's thickest point, and we're going to run it right through.
And this is my favorite part because it's when dough starts to look like it could really be pasta.
All right, let's run it through again.
You do want to save some of your wine for when the pasta is actually made. This is basically it's called laminating the pasta, and it's basically just to reinforce the strength of the pasta.
You're building the gluten network. That's my catchphrase.
That gluten network. Those glutens are talking to each other in there.
This is not gluten-free, I'll tell you that much. So let's make it a little bit thinner. Did you say the glutens are talking?
They're networking.
The glutens are posting on each other's page.
They're exchanging business cards. This is the fun part when we get to make it into fettuccine.
Yeah. Now we're going to cut the fettuccine noodles by running it through the fettuccine cutter. Kind of tricky to get it going at first, but once you get it going, it just comes out. We've cut about half the noodles because they can get too long and they'll break off. So we're going to hang it over this broomstick. Now they sell commercial pasta drying racks, but you really don't need something that fancy. Ooh, these look real good and roasty. The reason that we cooked these two vegetables separately is because we wanted the fennel to get nice and crispy and caramelized. But now I'm gonna mix them together to get it ready to mix with our pasta after we boil it. When you're boiling pasta, you want to add a lot of salt. You want it to be as salty as seawater. When you're working with fresh pasta, you only need to cook it for about 3 to 4 minutes. So here goes.
In they go.
Give it a little stir.
Our roasted vegetables have come together in a kind of gooey pile of deliciousness. And so those are gonna be the base of our sauce. And we're just gonna add some spices and a bunch of olive oil, and then we'll just add our pasta right in, and that's gonna be it. Woohoo! I always say, when in doubt, add more olive oil. Let's turn that on, low heat, and stir it up. So we have our finished product, our local wheat and local egg pasta with our local veggies. It's a really rewarding way to spend a Sunday, just rolling out pasta and cooking some vegetables with a good friend.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a big serving there, Megan. We're gonna finish this off with some Fiore di Capra herb cheese, goat cheese, made right here in Tucson. And then a little bit of parsley.
And then we just have some fresh herbs. Give it a little green kick.
I'm ready for dinner.
I'm so ready for dinner.